Heidi ho, everybody. This is the Sovereign CEO podcast, and I am Caleb Jones. And I show people just like you how to set up location-independent businesses, move to a less bad country, or at least set up an international plan B and do all of those things for very little money. And side note, I have very carefully, reluctantly dipped my nose, or dipped my toe, I should say, dip my nose as I rub my nose. No, I'm not snorting cocaine. Never done drugs in my life. Dip my toe back into paying attention to movies. So those of you who follow my content a long time, around 2017, I stopped watching movies because the collapsing Western world is not just collapsing economically, it's also collapsing culturally. So we don't know, our cultures don't know how to make good fiction anymore. Movies are terrible now. And the only movies they know how to make are reboots and remakes. They don't know how to make anything original that's actually any good. But in the last few months, I have very reluctantly dipped my toe a little bit into seeing some movies, either on the computer, HBO Max, or something like that, or in one or two rare exceptions, the movie theater. And boy, did I regret it. That last James Bond movie was terrible. It was boring. I'm sitting there in the movie theater. I saw it in Mexico. I'm sitting there in the movie theater with Pink Firefly. And I'm going, I'm bored, and this is a James Bond movie. Boy, was that a horrible movie. You know, Spectre, the last James Bond movie, that was pretty bad too, but Spectre was far more entertaining than this last James Bond movie. Oh my God, awful. The Matrix movie, terrible. Talk about boring. You want to kill yourself. Awful. That Ghostbusters movie, every 5 seconds, there's a new memberberry thing. Hey, remember the stacked books? Remember that? There they are. Hey, remember that funny hat that Egon wore? Hey, there it is. Oh my God, it's awful. Now, Spider-Man was good, but that was the first good movie they've made in about 4 years. And that's my point. And even the good Spider-Man movie, what was it? It's bringing back old characters from old movies back when Hollywood used to be able to make good movies. Yeah, so reason number 47, you probably want to leave the Western world is because it's not only collapsing economically, it's collapsing culturally, and I can do a whole thing on that. I won't. I've talked about this before. Anyway, as I've talked about, step zero, before step one, step zero in leaving your country and going to a less bad country is developing location-independent income through your location-independent Alpha 2.0 business, your high-income, low-work, location-independent, employee-resistant business. And a lot of you are writing into me or commenting at the Facebook group or various places that you're having trouble doing this. Well, Caleb, you know, I've worked really hard and I just can't find a niche. I read The Unchained Man and I bought your course and I went through materials. I've gone through your other stuff on your YouTube videos about finding a niche, and I've been just working on this for like 2 months and I just can't seem to find a niche. You know, damn, I just can't seem to figure this out. Or I can't seem to figure out what to sell. I have a niche. I found my niche is perfect, but I've been reading some books and thinking about this. A lot of you have been saying this. You know, I've been thinking about this for 2 months. Don't think about it. Do it. You know, I've been thinking about this and, you know, I just can't figure out what to sell. Is there any other techniques, Caleb, that you could give me on how to figure out what to sell once you determine a niche? No, I've given you thousands of them. I'm exaggerating. Giving you many, walking you through the process techniques, both in books and in courses and in free content. Some of you are saying, you know, I started my business and I just don't know how to market. You know, I've been reading this. I read all your materials in marketing and I've read some marketing books. I read 3 or 4 or 5 marketing books and I just still have no idea how to market my product or service, even though I've read 16 books on the topic. Let me present something to you, okay? And let me present an idea to you that is probably accurate. Maybe, not maybe, I'm being nice by saying maybe. Maybe the problem isn't the techniques that you're learning. Maybe it's not the techniques are not working, or the techniques are somehow deficient, or you don't have enough technique. You need to read 17 more books. You've only read 6 books and you need to read another 17 more to learn that one special thing that will enable you to start your business, your location-independent business. Maybe that's not the problem. Maybe the problem is instead that you're not motivated enough. No, Caleb. No, that's not true. No, Caleb. I'm not one of those guys, Caleb. I've seen this. No, Caleb. No. No. I'm not in that category. I'm motivated. Man, I live at home and I hate my mom. and I got to get the fuck out of here. Or I live in the United States, I live in California, and I can't fucking stand, I got to get the fuck out of here. Or I live in New York, I fucking hate it. It's a wasteland here. I got to get the fuck out. Or I live in the UK. Can't stand the UK. I want to get the fuck. No, Caleb, I am very, very motivated. Oh, I have no money, and every day I get mad that I have no money, and I'm so mad at myself. No, Caleb, that's not right. I am motivated, Caleb. I am motivated to do this, and I am motivated to make money. I'm not one of those guys in your audience who just sits on his ass and doesn't do anything. I bought your course. I bought some books. I bought some other books. I've read them. I spent hours and hours researching and thinking. Hint, hint, there's the problem right there. I've done hours and hours and hours and hours of researching and thinking about this, so I'm motivated. I would submit to you that you're still not motivated. You're not. If I put a gun to your head, let's use a different example. If I hired a hitman, Hitman from the Hitman video games, that bald guy with the barcode on his head, I hired him, come to your house or your apartment, and he found you in the middle of the night, and he put a pistol, literally, I'm speaking literally now. He came into your bedroom and put a goddamn silencer pistol to your head and said, if you don't start your business, which means you have found a niche, you have found what to sell, and you are actively marketing it. If you haven't done this in 10 days, I'm coming back here. I'm going to put one behind your ear. Okay? I'm going to blow your brains out, and they'll be splattered on the side of your wall, and your mommy and daddy or your roommates, whoever you live with, are going to see it and freak the fuck out. And I'm not going to listen to any excuses. I'm not even going to listen to a word you say. I'm just going to walk in and shoot you in the face. Okay? And let's say for a minute you believed him. Would you fuck around for 10 days reading more books? Okay, would you fuck around? Would you say, oh, I better watch Caleb's course 16 more times? Is that what you would do? No. You'd get your ass and you'd take action. Wouldn't you? Even if it didn't work. Because remember, the hitman didn't say, you need to find a niche, a product to sell and market, and you better start making money. He didn't say that part. He just said you need to have a product, you need to have a niche, and you need to be actively marketing it. I don't care if you make any money. I don't give a shit about that. But you need to actually be doing it, engaged in actually building a real business. You wouldn't fuck around. You wouldn't. And I'm not saying you're fucking around. I'm not saying that reading books or watching a course is fucking around. It isn't. As I've talked about many times, you do need to put in some research, but it's an 80-20 thing. 20% research, 80% action. 20% research, 80% action. What you don't do is 95% research, 5% action and say, gee, I'm just not getting anywhere. Right. The reason you're not getting anywhere is because all you're doing is thinking and researching. You're not actually doing. And the reason you're not doing, I've talked about this before, is that you're scared about making a mistake. You're scared about choosing the wrong thing. As I've said, my audience, the IQ tends to skew higher. And higher IQ guys, and or unfortunately, higher educated guys, tend to be more nervous about making a mistake. The advantage of more average intelligence guys or even moderately dumb guys is that they take action. If they make a mistake, they fuck up, they say that sucks, and then they take more action and more action and more action. They actually tend to take more action better. There's this old saying, and it's partially true, that A+ students grow up and work for C students. That's right. Because C students are not terrified about taking action because they might not have the right niche, or they might have the wrong product, or they might waste their money on a marketing technique that may not work. That's why the techniques are, quote, not working for you. The techniques do work. I've seen them work over and over again. They do work. And the reason that fear is paralyzing you is because you're not motivated enough. If you're one of these nerdy smart guys who is scared of making a mistake, the only way to overcome that fear is to get really uncomfortable and really motivated. Truly motivated. Not motivated enough to buy a course or read a book. Any dipshit can do that. No offense. You can't. And by the way, I'm talking to myself here. I was like this in my 20s. I would buy all these books and all these audio courses. We didn't have internet back then. We had cassette tape courses, and they were expensive. Some of them were $100, some of them were $150, some of them were $500. They were not cheap, and that's in 1990s dollars. It was a lot of money back then. And I went through them all, and I listened to them in my car, and I thought, oh, these are awesome ideas. Okay, cool, and I didn't do anything. You know what I did do? I would just listen to the next course and read the next book. Because I was scared of making a mistake, because I wasn't quite motivated enough. I was motivated enough to research the information and to think about it, but I wasn't motivated enough to actually do it. And if you are one of these guys who is still struggling after weeks or months with finding a niche or finding what to sell or figure out how to market it, or figure out the particular web service to use. I submit to you that you are motivated enough to think about it and read about it, but not actually fucking do it. Most likely it's because you're scared of making a mistake. That's most likely it. Now, I don't know you personally. Well, some of you I do, but I don't know exactly who you are. I can't read your mind. Maybe there are other reasons that you are hesitant to take action on this. Most likely it's because you're scared of making a mistake, but there might be other reasons. Whatever those reasons are, you need to sit down, get into your brain, and figure this out so you can start taking action, even if the action is incorrect, even if the action is wrong. I worked with a guy recently who started a small business in the healthcare sector, and he made $32,000 over one weekend within, I believe, 4 or 5 months of starting his business. Okay? There are some of you who have been thinking about this and researching this for the same amount of time, and you've made $0 because you haven't taken any action. Worked with another guy about, a year and a half ago or something. Started a business from scratch. Okay? Within 6 months, he was making more than he was making at his full-time job, quit his job. He was up to $10,000. Was it $10,000 a month or $9,000 a month? I'll say it was $9,000 a month. It might have been 10. $9,000 a month within 8 months of starting his business. Location dependent, Alpha 2.0 business. Okay? Why? Because he took action. And in both these cases, and in many other cases, these guys did a lot of things wrong. They fucked a lot of shit up. Okay? I've said many times, when I started from zero and got to a 6-figure income in 1990s dollars by the time I was 27, it took me 3.5 years of starting my business full-time, I should say. During that 3.5 year period, I made a lot of mistakes. I did all kinds of shit wrong. I am shocked at the number of things I did wrong. I'm shocked I actually got to that goal. Knowing what I know now, I could have done it in 6 months. But it took me 3.5 years instead of 6 months because of all the shit I did wrong. You know what? Do you think that bothers me now? You think I give a shit about that now? No. I'm very happy I did that. So yes, if you do, and you, by the way, it won't take you 3.5 years. You have all of my materials. You have a lot of other materials on the internet I didn't have access to. We didn't have an internet back then. I had very little material back then. I had some, and I followed some of it. A lot of it I didn't have, and a lot of it was just trial and error for me. But you actually have a specific blueprint that I've given you. And as I said many times, if you don't like my blueprint, follow someone else's. But don't think that you're having trouble with the techniques because the techniques aren't working, A, and the techniques are wrong, B, or C, you need to learn more techniques. Because I get these emails and DMs and messages and comments all the time. Caleb, I've read this and I've gone through this and I've gone through that. I still can't figure it out. Do you have any more books I can read? Do you have any more courses I can buy? Motherfucker, stop learning and start taking action. I know you're scared. I get it. I know you're nervous. I get it. Trust me, I get it. I still remember when I was 24 years old, sitting in my little tiny bullshit office, my $350 a month rent office, making cold calls. I had a real phone, and I would pick up the phone and I would dial the phone, and my hand was shaking. It was shaking, and my voice was shaking, and I had to call. There was a list of 150 companies I had to call, and I had to call them to sell my bullshit computer consulting services back then. And I remember how scared I was. And I also remember, I'm being totally honest with you, I would go into the office at 8 o'clock in the morning. Back then, I was still full of societal programming, and I felt that I have to start work at 8 o'clock because that's when the business day begins. I learned that from my dad, who gave me his societal programming from his society. But anyway, I got in 8 o'clock in the morning, sat down. I was so scared to make cold calls, I would pull up Diablo, the original Diablo game, Diablo 1, the DOS one, and I would play Diablo. I did this, and I would play it for like an hour. I would do anything possible to not make cold calls because I was so scared. But unlike many of you, I was motivated. I said, you know what? I can't do this. I got to make some calls. And I would save my game and get out of Diablo, and I'd be all sad because I want to play Diablo again. I remember all this. This is like 1990. I can tell you the exact time. This is the end of the year in 1996. Yeah. And I eventually made some cold calls, and I hated it. And I made some more cold calls, and I hated it. But as time went on, I hated it less and less because I got more accustomed to it because I was motivated. I made a decision in my life that I could not grow up with an average income. I grew up in a financially strapped family when I was young. And also when I moved out, when I was 18 years old, I had no money. I was poor. I hated it. And I said, I'm never, ever going back to that ever again. I cannot live my life with an average income. An average income will never make me happy, and I cannot live a life where I'm unhappy long term. I can't do the decision I made a very long time ago in my early 20s. This is before I figured out my mission. This is before I figured out my vision. And as some of you know my story. I did a lot of things wrong in my 20s. Absolutely, because I didn't have those guideposts of a mission and a vision. But I knew I could not be average in terms of having an average income. And I was motivated, so I made those calls. Now, fortunately for you, most of you don't need to make cold calls. Some of you do. There's a few of you that do. Most of you don't. Most businesses today don't require cold calls. Okay, even B2B. There's a lot of other ways to market your business, either by spending money or by doing something free, like blogging, videos, what have you. And that's the hilarious thing. Most of you have it easier than I did. You have a thing called the internet. I didn't have that in 1996. There was an internet and I was on it, but there was nothing on there. There was some nerdy shit, like some Robotech and Transformer stuff, and there was bikini girls, and that was it. And when you had when you had to download a picture of a bikini girl, it took like 20 minutes. You sat there and waited, right? You saw a little line scroll across the top of the screen, a little color line, and ooh, that's a line. Ooh, and you'd wait another 2 minutes, and be another 3 or 4 lines, and you see the top of her head, and you start getting all excited. Ooh, I see the top of her head. That was the fucking internet back then, okay? Today you have the internet, the real internet. You don't need to do cold calls. You've got things like LinkedIn. You've got things like pay-per-click ads on YouTube and things like that. You've got all kinds of cool shit that I didn't have access to. You have it easier than I did in many respects in terms of business. Now, there are parts of life that are more difficult right now, like dating and women. That is more difficult. But in terms of starting a location-independent Alpha 2.0 business, that is far easier than it was 25, 30 years ago when I started my first business, which was location-dependent. And you are still farting around with the material and not taking action. You're still doing this. Now, I know what some of you are going to say, because I've gotten these comments too. Caleb, dude, you don't understand. Men today are pussies, and men today aren't motivated. They have low testosterone. They're all betas. You know, they don't mind being unhappy. They're losers. They're MGTOWs, incels, black pill. They don't mind being unhappy. They're wimps, and they're feminine. And so, I mean, that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is, Caleb. That's just the way it is. First of all, you're not wrong. I've talked about this myself, of course. Right. You're right. Now, here's the issue, though. These men can choose to be something more. So if you're in that category, if you're the typical Gen Z or millennial who's kind of lazy and kind of likes to sit on your ass and lives a shitty life and doesn't really mind, you can make the decision to be something else. And I know this because I was a beta male. First, 15 years of my adult life. And certainly all through high school, my adolescence, I was a beta. Now, I wasn't a raging, horrible, angry beta, wasn't an incel beta, but I was a beta. I was a beta male. And I came to the point where I sat down and said, I can't live this way anymore. I've got to be something more, or at least something different. Let's call it something different instead of something more, make it more palatable to your lazy little brain. Let's call it something different. Any of you can make the decision to be something different. You can. I didn't say it's easy. It wasn't easy for me. I had to go through, a life event where I had a horrible marriage and a business that drove me insane. And I had to go through some shit to get to that point. So I get it. It's not easy, but you can do this. You can make the decision. And to be fair, most of you or most of the audience are not going to make this decision. I've said this many times. I'll say it again. When you are a content provider, a public figure, the vast majority of your audience won't do anything you tell them to do. They'll just listen to your content and they'll consider entertaining or interesting and they'll nod their heads and go, that's cool. Or they'll laugh and think it's funny and be entertained and they won't do anything. So most people listening to this podcast, unfortunately, will not take any action or any real action. But guess what? I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to you, listening to my words. I'm talking to you. You as an individual can decide to get off your dumb ass and become something different. Just like I did. You can make that decision. I didn't say it's an easy decision to make. I said you have the ability to make that decision. It's not like you are forever doomed to be a lazy beta male because that's what you are now. I have known many people who were one thing and changed into something else. And it doesn't even have to be a radical change. So I went through the transformation from beta male to alpha male 2.0. But there's core parts of my personality that are the same. I'm still at heart a nerd. Comic books, science fiction, fantasy. My favorite thing to do for fun other than have sex is to write fantasy fiction. Can't get more nerdy than that because I was a nerd. So I'm still that person inside. It's not like I've completely radically transformed into a completely different person. I'm just the more alpha version of that 1990s version of Caleb. And that's what you can be. You can be a more alpha version of you, not a radically different person. No one is saying that you have to just wake up one day, snap your fingers, and instantly be making a 7-figure income and have ripped six-pack abs and drive a Lamborghini and bang supermodels in 24 hours. No one's saying this. All I'm saying is that you need to take action on the things that you have learned, even if you might make a mistake, which you probably will, and that's okay. Ask yourself, what happens if you don't take action? You're going to live the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years being the typical lazy guy, the typical lazy Western millennial Gen Z, and some of you guys are not millennials, Gen Zs. Some of you guys are my age. There's not as many of you, but there's a few of you who are in your 40s or 50s who are lazy shits too. There's a few of you. What if you are continuing to live that way the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Where are you going to be? How happy will you be then? You'll be fucking miserable is the answer. Plus, as I've talked about before, you live in a collapsing Western world. So not only will you be older and fatter and still the same guy, you'll just be older and fatter. You'll be the same beta you are today. You'll just be older and fatter and uglier. Really? If you don't make any changes. But not only that, externally, the country in which you live in, most of you live in the Western world, unfortunately, is going to get worse and worse and worse. More authoritarian, more left-wing, more woke, more horrible, lower economy, shittier currency, more homeless people, et cetera, so forth and so on. So everything will get worse if you don't make a change. Got to make a change. Got to make a change, man. You know, I make money when I sell my materials, when I sell my books and my courses and my coaching programs, even my coaching programs. I make money whether or not the person buying these things actually does it. So in terms of my economics, it doesn't really matter to me if you actually do what I recommend you do. But I have a mission. And part of my mission is to make sure that enough of you actually do these things so that you become Sovereign CEO, so that you become, if you want, Alpha Male 2.0, so that you live a life of long-term masculine happiness or feminine happiness, because Sovereign CEO applies to women too, that you live a life where you are unburdened from the collapsing West and the rising authoritarianism all over the world, that you live a life where you have plenty of money to live a lifestyle that makes you happy, which is what most people do not have today. And I could also talk about the woman aspect of this, but that's Alpha Male 2.0 stuff. This is Sovereign CEO. You can go over to my Alpha Male 2.0 YouTube channel and subscribe over there, which you should, by the way. But my point is, my mission, my role here is to not only give you the information, but help you actually implement it. It would bother me, and it does bother me, and I'm pretty outcome independent, but it does bother me at least a little bit, to have a bunch of customers and a bunch of clients who don't do what the material tells them to do. Now, do I care? Probably not. I make plenty of money, so I don't really care. But it does bother me that enough of you, because I'm getting so many emails and questions and DMs and comments about this, about how you have the material, if not my material, other material, and you're not taking real action on it. You're just thinking about it and reading it. I want you to actually implement these things because I want you to live, if not the exact life I live, and you probably shouldn't, you're not me, but a semblance of the lifestyle structure that I have, the Alpha 2.0 structure, the Sovereign CEO structure. Because you don't know how good it is. It's good. And it's achievable by any man or woman listening to these words. As always, I only teach stuff that is achievable by the typical person. So if you are in that category, you have my materials, you've been going through my materials or other people's materials, that's fine. And it's been months and months or weeks and weeks and you still haven't accomplished anything because you just haven't figured it out yet. You need to look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, are you really motivated to do this or not? And if you're not, I'll be super nice about this. If you're not, then forget it. Just forget it. Just be a beta. Just be a beta male and just go down with the ship with everyone else. Just, smoke weed and watch Netflix and work your stupid corporate job that you don't like and just do that the rest of your life. And, live a shitty life. That's fine. It's okay. I'm an individualist. You should do whatever you want. If you're really not motivated, I can't make you motivated. But if you think you are or you could be, then get to fucking work and stop making excuses about how you need more technique or maybe the techniques don't work, because they do. And you don't need any more. If I keep talking about this, I'm going to start to get pissed off. So I won't do that. I'll leave you on a positive note. I love you. I do. I love you guys. And so I want what's best for you. And that's not going to happen if you just sit and fart around with the material instead of implementing it. Cool? Think about it. That's it. See you in the next podcast next week. Have fun. Bye.